My name is Dr. Elena Carter. I'm 34 years old. And 5 years ago, my own brother convinced a judge that I was mentally unstable. And my father backed him up. That single moment didn't just cost me my reputation. It cost me my career, my home, my fiancé, and every person I had ever called family. For 5 years, I didn't exist to them. I wasn't invited. I wasn't missed. I wasn't even spoken about. I was erased. And then last month, at 2:17 in the morning, a trauma patient was rushed into my operating room, unconscious, bleeding internally. Minutes away from death, I glanced at the chart and saw a name I hadn't seen in 5 years. Michael Carter, my father, the same man who once stood in a courtroom and said I wasn't fit to live a normal life. Now lying on my table, with his life in my hands. Before I tell you what I did next, take a second. If stories about betrayal, truth, and rebuilding your life mean something to you, hit like, subscribe, and tell me where you're watching from. Because what happened next, no one saw coming. Let me take you back. Chicago, 2018. The last day I was someone's daughter. We used to be a normal family. Not perfect, not close, but normal enough. My father, Michael Carter, was a construction contractor. Hard-working. Quiet. The kind of man who believed being right mattered more than being kind. My older brother Daniel was everything I wasn't. Confident, loud, charismatic. He could walk into any room and make people believe whatever he wanted them to believe, including lies. Growing up, there were 2 versions of truth in our house. Daniel's version and reality. If something broke, Daniel had an explanation. If something went wrong, Daniel had a story. And somehow, his stories always won, not because they were true, but because they were easier to believe. I learned early on that being quiet meant being overlooked. So I didn't argue. I focused on school, on getting out, on building something that didn't depend on anyone believing me. By 26, I had done it. Medical school. Top of my class. Accepted into a competitive surgical residency program in Chicago. For the first time in my life, I wasn't invisible. And for a brief moment, my father noticed. The day I got accepted into residency, he shook my hand. Not a hug, a handshake. But for him, that was everything. "Don't mess this up," he said. That was his version of pride. Daniel was there that day too. Standing in the kitchen, smiling, but not with his eyes. I didn't realize it then. But that was the moment everything shifted. Because success doesn't just change your life. It changes how people see you. And for some people, that's a problem. The real breaking point came a year later, after our mother passed away. She had been sick for a long time. Cancer. Slow. Relentless. I was the one who stayed. I took time off rotations. I drove her to chemo. I sat with her through nights when the pain got so bad she couldn't breathe. Daniel visited when it was convenient, when there were people around to see him. When she died, everything should have been simple. Grief, closure, moving forward. Instead, it turned into a war. Because of the will. She left everything to me. The house, her savings, everything. Not because she loved me more, but because she trusted me more. And Daniel couldn't accept that. At first, it was subtle. Comments, questions. "Are you sure that's what she wanted? Seems a little unfair, don't you think?" Then it escalated. Fast. Within weeks. I was being called into meetings with lawyers. Daniel contesting the will, claiming undue influence, claiming I manipulated our mother. It didn't make sense. Until the court date. That's when I realized. He wasn't trying to win the case. He was trying to destroy me. The courtroom was quiet, cold. The kind of place where truth doesn't matter as much as presentation. Daniel took the stand first. Confident, composed, prepared. He talked about my behavior, my stress, my emotional instability. He said medical school had changed me, that I was not the same person. Then he introduced something I wasn't expecting. Evidence. Printed messages. Emails. Conversations I had never seen. All showing me as erratic, unstable, unpredictable. I remember sitting there, thinking, this doesn't make sense. Until I realized something terrifying. They weren't real, but they looked real. Close enough that doubt could grow. And doubt is all you need. Then came the moment that ended everything. My father was called to the stand. I thought, this is where it stops. This is where truth wins. Because no matter what Daniel said, my father knew me. He raised me. He knew who I was. He took the oath, sat down, avoided my eyes, and then he said it. I don't believe my daughter is mentally stable. Just like that. No hesitation. No explanation. Just a sentence that erased everything I had built. I don't remember the rest of the hearing. I remember the silence. The way people looked at me differently. The way doubt spread through the room like something alive. Within weeks, the hospital placed me on administrative leave, pending evaluation. My fiancé left. I don't know what's true anymore, he said. Friends stopped calling. Colleagues avoided me. And my family? They didn't just turn away. They disappeared. Blocked numbers. Returned mail. Silence. Complete silence. For a while, I believed them. I questioned everything. Every memory. Every decision. Every part of myself. Until one night, alone in a small apartment I could barely afford, I asked a different question. What if they're wrong? That question changed everything. Because if they were wrong, then I didn't need their permission to rebuild, so I did. From nothing, new state, new applications, no references, no safety net. I worked nights, studied during the day, retook exams, rebuilt credentials. It took 4 years. 4 years of being invisible. But invisible isn't the same as gone. By 2024, I was back, not the same. Better. Board-certified trauma surgeon. Working at one of the busiest emergency centers in Michigan. Respected. Trusted. Untouchable. And then, at 2:17 a.m., everything came full circle. The trauma pager went off. Male. Mid-60s. Internal bleeding. Critical. I grabbed the chart and saw the name. Michael Carter. My father. For a second, everything stopped. Not the world. Just me. 5 years of silence, of loss, of rebuilding. All crashing into one moment. Doctor, we're losing him. That's what brought me back. Not emotion. Training. I stepped forward. Prep the OR. No hesitation. Because in that moment, he wasn't my father. He was a patient. And I had a job to do. The surgery lasted nearly 4 hours. Ruptured artery. Severe blood loss. Multiple complications. One mistake, and he wouldn't make it. My hands didn't shake. Not once. Because this wasn't about the past. This was about the present. At 5:41 a.m., I saved his life. But the real story was waiting outside, in the waiting room, where my brother and the man who chose him over me were about to come face to face with the truth. The waiting room felt smaller than it should have, like the walls had moved in overnight. Or maybe it was just the weight of everything about to happen inside it. My brother was standing near the vending machine, pretending to read something on his phone. He wasn't. He kept glancing at the IQ doors every few seconds, waiting, controlling what little he still could. My father sat 2 chairs away, leaning forward, hands clasped so tightly his knuckles had turned white. The man who once stood in a courtroom without shaking, now couldn't even sit still. And then the doors opened. I stepped in, still in my surgical scrubs, hair tied back, badge visible, no introduction needed. For a second, no one spoke. Daniel turned first. His eyes met mine, and I watched it happen again. Recognition, shock, and then something new. Fear. Elena, he said. But it didn't sound like my name anymore. It sounded like a problem he didn't know how to solve. My father stood slowly, like the act itself took effort. You operated on him? He asked, voice unsteady. Yes. Why? The question hung there, heavy, loaded. I took a step forward. Not aggressive, not emotional, just certain. Because he was dying. Silence. Daniel let out a short laugh, but there was no confidence behind it this time. No, I mean after everything, why would you let him die? I finished. He didn't answer, because that was exactly what he meant. I held his gaze. I'm a doctor. 3 words, simple, but they landed harder than anything else I could have said. My father looked between us, confusion written all over his face. You're really back? I never stopped being who I was, I said. You just stopped looking. That hit. Hard. Daniel stepped in quickly, trying to regain control. This is getting out of hand, he said. We don't need to do this here. You're right, I said calmly. We don't. And for a second, relief crossed his face, until I reached into my bag and placed the folder on the chair between us. But we are, I added. His expression changed instantly. What is that? He asked. Everything, I said. My father frowned. What do you mean? I opened the folder slowly, deliberately. Call logs, I said. Emails. Official hospital correspondence. Psych evaluations that cleared me. I slid a document toward them. This, I continued, is the report from the hospital that suspended me. Another page. And this is the follow-up. My father picked it up with shaking hands. Read. Then read again. They cleared you, he said quietly. Yes. Daniel didn't move, didn't touch the papers, didn't look at them, because he already knew what was inside. That's not, he started. It is, I said. And then I pulled out the last piece, the one I had kept separate, carefully. This is the forensic analysis of those messages you submitted in court. Now Daniel moved. Fast. That's enough, he snapped. Too late. My father was already reading, and this time, he didn't need to read twice. They're fake, he said. Not a question. A realization. I didn't say anything. I didn't have to. The silence did the work. Daniel, my father said slowly. No. Daniel replied quickly. That's not what it looks like. What does it look like? I asked. He turned to me. Anger rising. Desperation creeping in. You think you're so perfect, he said. You think you're better than everyone because you made it back. This isn't about me being better, I said. It's about you lying. His voice rose. I did what I had to do. There it was. Not denial. Justification. For what? I asked. For this, he snapped, gesturing toward me. For you taking everything. The house, the money, Mom's trust, everything was just handed to you like you earned it. I was there, I said quietly. That stopped him. For her, I continued, when she couldn't breathe, when she couldn't remember your name. Silence. You weren't, I finished. My father closed his eyes, like the truth physically hurt. I didn't know, he said. I looked at him, really looked. You didn't ask. That was worse, because it was true. Daniel shook his head. This is pointless, he said. What do you want, Elena? An apology? A public statement? What? I stepped closer. I want the truth, I said. You have it, he replied. No, I said. They don't. I nodded toward my father. And everyone else you lied to. His jaw tightened. You're asking me to ruin my life. I held his gaze. You already ruined mine. Silence again. But this time, it didn't break. My father sat down slowly, like his legs couldn't hold him anymore. Is it true? He asked. Not to me. To Daniel. The question that should have been asked 5 years ago. Daniel didn't answer, didn't move, didn't speak, and that silence was louder than anything else. My father nodded once, slow, devastated. That's what I thought, he said. Something shifted in that moment, not just in him, in the entire room, because for the first time, the truth wasn't being questioned. It was being accepted. And Daniel knew it. You don't understand, he said, voice lower now. I was trying to fix things. You weren't fixing anything, I said. You were protecting yourself. He looked at me, and for the first time in his life, he had no comeback, no spin, no version of reality he could sell. Just the truth. Raw, ugly, unavoidable. I'm giving you one chance, I said. Both of them looked at me. You tell the truth, I continued. To everyone. And if I don't? Daniel asked. I didn't hesitate. Then I will. That landed. Hard. Because this time, I had the proof, and the position, and the voice. Everything he took from me, I had rebuilt. Stronger. I'm not that girl anymore, I said quietly. The one who needed you to believe her. I picked up the folder, placed it back in my bag. I don't need anything from you. And that was the most powerful thing I could have said, because it was true. I turned to leave. Elena, my father's voice. I stopped, not turning yet. I'm sorry, he said. Simple. Real. Too late to fix everything, but not too late to matter. I turned slowly. And for the first time, I saw it. Not authority, not certainty, just regret. Deep, heavy, and honest. I believe you, he said. 5 years late. But still, he said it. I nodded once, and walked out, not angry, not broken, but finally, free. For a full day after that confrontation, nothing happened. No calls, No messages. No dramatic apology. Just silence. The kind of silence that feels wrong. Because when someone like Daniel loses control, they don't stay quiet. They react. And I knew it was coming. I just didn't know how far he'd go. It happened the next evening. I had just gotten home. Still in scrubs. Halfway through taking off my shoes when my phone started vibrating. Once. Twice. Then non-stop. Messages. Notifications. Missed calls. At first, I thought something had happened at the hospital. Until I opened the first message. Is this about you? The second. Turn on the news now. My stomach dropped. I opened social media, and there it was. My name. Trending. Again. But this time, not the way I expected. Daniel hadn't told the truth. He had doubled down. And he didn't just tell the story privately. He told it publicly. A full post. Long. Detailed. Carefully written. Painting himself as the victim. Claiming I had manipulated the system to rebuild my career. That I had faked documents. That I had somehow forced my way back into medicine. And the worst part, he included the hospital. My hospital. Tagged it. Named it. Implying they had hired someone unstable. It spread fast, because outrage always does. Within an hour, thousands of shares, comments flooding in. Half of them confused. Half of them believing him. Because doubt? It never fully disappears. And Daniel knew that. I stood there in my living room, phone in my hand, watching my life start to unravel again. But this time, something was different. I wasn't panicking. I wasn't breaking. I was calm. Because this time, I had something I didn't have before. Proof. And power. My phone rang. Hospital administration. Dr. Carter, we need you to come in. Of course they did. I didn't argue. Didn't defend myself over the phone. On my way, I said. Simple. Controlled. Because I already knew how this part worked. The conference room felt familiar. Too familiar. Same long table. Same serious faces. Same unspoken question in the air. Is it true? The chief medical officer sat across from me. Hands folded. Expression neutral. We've seen the allegations, he said. I nodded. And? He asked. No emotion. No assumptions. Just a question. That alone told me something had changed. 5 years ago. No one asked. This time, they did. It's not true, I said. And then I opened my bag. Slowly. Deliberately. And placed the evidence on the table. Every document. Every report. Every piece of proof. I didn't rush. I didn't over-explain. I let the facts speak. Because facts don't need volume, they need clarity. 20 minutes later, the tension wasn't gone. But it had shifted. From doubt to realization. The CMO leaned back. Exhaled. This is serious, he said. Yes, I replied. Not for you, he added. For him. That was the moment everything flipped. Not slowly. Instantly. Because now, this wasn't a family issue. It was defamation. Fraud. Public misconduct. And Daniel had just handed them proof of intent. By going public. By naming the hospital. By making accusations he couldn't back up. He didn't just reopen the past. He escalated it. And he did it in front of everyone. Which meant the response wouldn't be quiet. It would be just as public. I didn't go home that night. I stayed because I knew this wasn't over. And I was right. By morning, everything had changed. The hospital released a statement. Clear. Direct. Dr. Elena Carter is a fully licensed, board-certified physician in good standing. Any claims suggesting otherwise are false and will be addressed accordingly. Short, but powerful. Because institutions don't speak like that, unless they're certain. And then came the second wave. People started digging, because the internet always does. Old court records, public filings, everything Daniel thought was buried started resurfacing. And then, the twist. The one thing even I didn't see coming. A journalist reached out. Not to Daniel. To me. She had been following the story. But more importantly, she had found something. Something I hadn't. Your brother, she said carefully, has done this before. My chest tightened. What do you mean? There are 2 prior cases, she continued. Different people, different situations, but the pattern is the same. False claims, manipulated evidence, financial disputes. My mind went quiet, because suddenly, this wasn't just about me. I wasn't the only one. Daniel hadn't snapped. He had a pattern, a system, and now it was all coming out, publicly. The story exploded, from a viral post to a full investigation. News outlets picked it up, not as family drama, but as something bigger. A man who manipulated legal systems. A pattern of deception. A history of controlled narratives. And at the center of it was me, not as the victim, but as the one who survived it. The comments changed. Fast. From doubt to support. From questions to outrage. Because people don't just react to lies. They react to patterns. And Daniel's pattern was undeniable. I didn't post anything. Not yet. Because timing matters. And I wasn't reacting anymore. I was choosing. 3 days later, I made my move. 1 post. That's all it took. No emotion. No attack. Just facts. A timeline. Documents. Proof. And 1 sentence at the end. I didn't speak before because I was trying to survive. I'm speaking now because I don't have to anymore. That was it. No drama. No insults. Just truth. It went viral in hours. Because truth hits differently. Especially after a lie. Daniel tried to respond. But it didn't land. Because once people see the truth, they don't go back. His calls started coming in. Relentless. I didn't answer. Because for the first time, I didn't need to. His reputation collapsed. Not overnight, but fast enough. Business connections pulled back. People distanced themselves. Not out of anger, but out of doubt. And for someone like Daniel, doubt is worse than rejection. Because it takes away control. My father called me that night. Not to defend him. Not to explain. Just to say one thing. I see it now. Simple, real. 5 years too late. But still, it mattered. I didn't say much. I didn't need to. Because this wasn't about proving anything anymore. That part was done. This was about what came next. And what came next was something I never expected. Because when everything settles, when the truth is out, when the noise dies down, you're left with one question. What do you do with the people who broke you? What do you do with the people who broke you? That question stayed with me. Not loudly, not dramatically, just present. Like something waiting. Because the truth was out now. Public. Verified. Undeniable. Daniel's version of reality had collapsed. My father had seen it. The world had seen it. So technically, I had won, but it didn't feel like winning. It felt like standing in the middle of something that used to be my life, and realizing there was nothing left to go back to. That's the part no one talks about. When the truth comes out, it doesn't restore the past. It just changes the present. 3 days after my post went viral, I got a call I wasn't expecting, from a number I hadn't seen in years. I almost didn't answer. Almost. But something in me said, this matters. So I picked up. Elena? I froze. Not because I didn't recognize the voice, but because I hadn't heard it in so long. I had almost forgotten what it sounded like. Yeah, I said. A pause. Then quietly, it's me. I didn't respond right away, because I already knew. My ex-fiancé. The man who walked away the moment doubt entered the room. I saw everything, he said. Of course he did. Everyone had. I didn't know, he added quickly. Back then, I didn't know what to believe. I let the silence sit, because I had heard that before, from too many people. I'm not calling to excuse it, he said. I needed to say I'm sorry. Sorry. That word again. It had been showing up a lot lately, from people who disappeared when it mattered, and returned when it was safe. I appreciate that, I said, and I meant it. But appreciation isn't the same as acceptance. I should have stood by you, he continued. I should have asked questions. I should have. You didn't, I said. Not harsh, just honest. Another pause. Yeah, he admitted. That was the first real thing he said. And for a moment, I felt something I wasn't expecting. Not anger, not sadness. Just clarity. Because I realized something important. People don't just show you who they are when things are good. They show you who they are when things fall apart. And he had shown me 5 years ago. I'm glad you're doing well, he said finally. I am, I replied. And this time, there was no hesitation, no doubt, because it was true. We ended the call shortly after. No promises, no reconnection, just closure, real closure. And for the first time, that chapter of my life didn't feel open anymore. It felt finished. But the story? It wasn't over yet. Because Daniel wasn't done. He couldn't be. People like him don't just walk away when they lose control. They escalate. And he did. 2 nights later, there was a knock at my door. Not a call. Not a message. A knock. Slow. Deliberate. I already knew who it was. I opened the door. Daniel stood there. But not the Daniel I grew up with. Not the confident one. Not the controlled one. This version looked different. Tired. Unsteady. Like something inside him had finally cracked. We need to talk, he said. I didn't move. We already did, I replied. No, he said quickly. Not like this. Not everything. I studied him for a moment, because this felt different. Not like his usual approach. No performance. No charm. Just urgency. 5 minutes, I said. That was all I was willing to give. He stepped inside, looked around, taking in the life I had built, without him. You really did it, he said quietly. Did what? Came back, he replied. I didn't answer, because this wasn't about my success. This was about his truth. He ran a hand through his hair. I didn't think it would go this far, he said. I almost laughed. You said that already, I replied. I mean it, he insisted. At the beginning, it was just about the will. And then? I asked. He hesitated. And that hesitation told me everything. And then it worked, I said. He looked up, surprised. You realized people believed you, I continued. And once they did, you couldn't stop. Silence. Because that was the truth. I didn't plan the rest, he said quietly. No, I said. You built it. Piece by piece. Lie by lie. Until it became something bigger than even he could control. I thought you'd just disappear, he admitted. That one hit differently. Because it wasn't cruel. It was honest. I almost did, I said. And for a second, we were both quiet, because we both knew how close that had been. I'm not asking you to forgive me, he said. Good. Because that wasn't on the table. I don't know what to do now. That was new. Daniel didn't know what to do. For the first time in his life, he wasn't in control of the narrative, and it showed. You tell the truth, I said. I already did. No, I replied. You admitted the lie. That's not the same thing. He frowned. What do you mean? I mean you tell the whole truth, I said. Not just what you did, but why you did it. He looked away. Because that part was harder. That's not something people want to hear, he muttered. It's not about what they want, I said. It's about what's real. Silence stretched between us. Then slowly, he nodded, like he understood. Not completely, but enough. I'll do it, he said. I didn't respond because words weren't enough anymore. I mean it, he added. Show me, I said. And that was it. Conversation over. He left shortly after. No drama. No shouting. Just a quiet exit. But something about it felt unfinished. Like the story was still building. And I was right. Because what happened next changed everything again. A week later, the journalist called me back. Her voice was different this time, tighter. Something's come up, she said. My stomach dropped. What is it? It's about your father. Everything in me went still. What about him? There's a financial trail, she said carefully, connected to the original case. I didn't understand. What kind of trail? A transfer, she explained. From Daniel to your father. My mind tried to process it. And then it clicked. No, I said. But even as I said it, I knew there was only one reason that would exist. Payment. For testimony. For silence. For choosing a side. I'm still verifying it, she said. But if it's confirmed. She didn't need to finish the sentence. Because I already knew. This wasn't just betrayal. It was something worse. It was a choice. A deliberate one. And suddenly, the story I thought I understood got deeper, darker, more complicated. Because maybe my father hadn't just believed a lie. Maybe he had been part of it. And if that was true, then everything that came after was built on something much bigger than I ever imagined. He opened the door, and the moment he saw me, he knew. You heard, he said. Not a question. That was enough. My chest tightened, but my voice stayed steady. You took money. Silence. No denial, no confusion. No attempt to explain. Just silence. And that silence said everything. How much? I asked. He exhaled slowly, like the number itself carried weight. 50,000. It hit harder than I expected, not because of the amount, but because of what it meant. He didn't just believe Daniel. He chose him. For a price. For what? I asked. He looked at the floor, then finally back at me. He said you were going to take everything, he said quietly. That once you had the estate, you'd cut us off. That you didn't need us anymore. I stared at him. And you believe that? I didn't know what to believe, he said. That's not true, I replied. Because now, I could see it clearly. You chose what was easier to believe. He flinched, because that was the truth. I thought I was protecting the family, he said. You were protecting yourself, I said. Silence again. And then, something shifted. Not in me. In him. His shoulders dropped. The last piece of resistance. Gone. I was jealous, he said. I didn't expect that. Of what? I asked. Of you, he replied. The words hung there. Unfamiliar. Heavy. You were doing something I didn't understand, he continued. Something bigger than anything I had built. And instead of being proud, I felt like I was losing you. I didn't speak. Because for the first time, he wasn't hiding. And when Daniel came to me, he added, it gave me a reason to believe you were the problem, not me. There it was. Not just betrayal, but insecurity, fear, and the need to be right. At any cost. I didn't think it would destroy you, he said. I let out a quiet breath. That's the problem, I replied. You didn't think. Silence filled the space between us. But this time, it wasn't tense. It was final. I'm going to fix it, he said suddenly. I looked at him. How? I'll tell everyone, he said. The truth. About the money. About everything. I studied him carefully, because I had heard promises before, from both of them. And I knew the difference now, between words and action. You should, I said. Not encouragement, just truth. But understand something, I added. He nodded slowly. This doesn't undo anything. I know, he said. And for the first time, I believed him. Not because of what he said, but because of how he said it. No defense. No justification. Just acceptance. I didn't stay long. There was nothing else to say. Some conversations don't need to be long. They just need to be real. 2 days later, the truth came out again. But this time it was bigger. Because it didn't come from me. Or from Daniel. It came from my father. A public statement. Not polished, not strategic. Honest. He admitted everything. The money, the testimony, the choice he made. He didn't blame Daniel. He didn't explain it away. He just said it. I was wrong. And for a man like him, that meant everything. The reaction was immediate. Shock. Disbelief. But also understanding. Because people recognize honesty, especially when it costs something. And this cost him everything. Reputation. Respect. The image he had built over decades. Gone. Not because someone exposed him, but because he told the truth himself. And that kind of honesty, it changes things. Not the past, but the future. Daniel didn't take it well. Of course he didn't. Because this time, he wasn't in control. He called me. Again. And again. I didn't answer. Until the 4th time. Not because I wanted to, but because I needed to hear it. Why would you do this? He said the moment I picked up. I almost smiled. I didn't, I replied. You told him, he snapped. No, I said. He chose to tell the truth. Silence. Then anger. You think this makes you better? He said. You think this fixes anything? No, I replied. It doesn't. Then what's the point? He demanded. I paused. Because the answer mattered. The point, I said slowly, is that I don't have to carry it anymore. That stopped him. Because for the first time, he understood. This wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about winning. It was about freedom. I lost everything, he said quietly, because that wasn't my responsibility. And for the first time, I knew that. You're still my sister, he added. That one almost worked. Almost, but not anymore. I'm someone who used to be your sister, I said. Honest, clear, final. And then I ended the call. Months passed. Slowly. Not dramatically, but steadily. The noise faded. The attention moved on. Because it always does. And what was left was real life. Quiet. Consistent. Mine. My father reached out occasionally. Not often. Not intrusively. Just enough to show. He was trying. No big gestures. No dramatic apologies. Just small things. Consistency. And that mattered more. Because change isn't proven in moments. It's proven in patterns. Daniel disappeared for a while. From everything. No posts. No statements. No attempts to rebuild the story. And honestly, that was the most honest thing he had done. Not fixing it. Not explaining it, just stepping away. A year later, everything felt different. Not perfect. Not repaired. But stable. And that was enough. I was in my kitchen one morning, making coffee. Sunlight coming through the window. The kind of quiet that feels earned. There was a knock at the door. I opened it. My father stood there. Older. Softer. Less certain. Hi, he said. Simple. I stepped aside. Come in. He walked in slowly, looking around, taking in the life he almost never saw. You built all this, he said. Yes. He nodded, like he understood something now. He didn't before. I'm proud of you, he said. And this time, it didn't feel late. It felt real. I didn't respond right away, because I didn't need to. We stood there in the quiet, not fixing the past, not pretending it didn't happen, just standing in the present. And that was enough. My name is Dr. Elena Carter. I'm 34 years old. And 5 years ago, my own family destroyed my life. But they didn't end it. Because I learned something most people don't realize until it's too late. You don't need people to believe you, to become who you're meant to be. You don't need validation, to rebuild. And you don't need revenge, to win. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is build a life so strong that the people who broke you have no choice but to face it, not through anger, not through punishment, but through truth. And when that moment comes, you don't owe them anything, not forgiveness, not access, not even closure. You just decide what role, if any, they get to play in the life you built without them. That's not revenge. That's control. And that changes everything. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever been misunderstood, judged, or left behind when you needed people the most, tell me in the comments. What would you have done? Would you have opened that door? Or left it closed? And if you want more stories like this, you already know what to do. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.